Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're pointing the magnifying glass at a universal experience that pretty much all of us share. Whether you absolutely love it, completely resent it, or maybe fall somewhere in a messy middle ground.
Right, which I think is where most of us live.
Yeah, exactly. I'm talking, of course, about work, the daily grind, the 9 to 5. Our topic today is the very concept of jobs.
And usually we're digging through thick academic research or these long-form investigative articles, but our source material for this exploration is actually something incredibly unique.
It really is.
It's an English language learning script. It was originally titled, Let's Talk About Jobs, from a program called SHELLY's English Channel.
Which I know sounds a bit unusual for us.
Yeah, on the surface, this is a lesson explicitly designed for beginner to pre-intermediate English learners. I mean, it's just meant to teach basic vocabulary.
Right, but we aren't here just to practice vocabulary. The mission of our deep dive today is to unpack this foundational language lesson to see what it actually reveals about us. We're going to explore how we define our professional lives, analyze the emotional weight of the adjectives we use to describe our jobs, and see what this stripped-down basic vocabulary reveals about the architecture of the modern workplace.
Because it's a fascinating lens through which to view your own daily life.
It really is the perfect mirror. When you take complex, messy societal structures like the modern economy or corporate culture, and you're forced to break them down into their simplest, most essential parts for someone who's just learning the language, you accidentally reveal the absolute core of how a society operates.
You really do. You strip away the corporate jargon, the buzzwords, the resume padding, and you're left with the raw truth of how we trade our time and energy for survival. I'm really looking forward to seeing what this basic vocabulary tells us about our own professional identities.
Exactly. It's like explaining water to a fish. In doing so, you realize how strange water actually is. Okay, let's unpack this, starting with the absolute ultimate icebreaker.
The big one.
The source points out that when you meet a new person, the very first, most common question asked is, what do you do?
Right.
Now, what I love about this script is that it immediately addresses a massive point of confusion for beginners. It highlights the crucial distinction between what are you doing and what do you do.
It's such a subtle but massive difference.
The script clarifies that what are you doing means what's happening right now in this exact moment. Like, I'm eating or I'm walking, but what do you do means what is your job or what is your profession. The way the English language maps those two things is so telling.
It's a brilliant linguistic distinction to focus on. Think about the philosophy embedded right there in the grammar.
Yeah.
What are you doing uses the present continuous tense. It implies a temporary state. Eating, walking, talking, these are fleeting actions.
Right.
But what do you do uses the simple present tense. In English, we use that for permanent truth, habits, and unchanging states. The sun rises in the east. Dogs bark. And you are an accountant.
Wait, so just by shifting from doing to do, the English language is basically locking us into our job titles.
Pretty much.
That feels a bit restrictive, doesn't it? Like, you aren't just performing the action of accounting. You fundamentally are the accountant.
It's incredibly restrictive. The language itself is telling the learner that your profession isn't just a temporary action you're performing. It's a permanent state of your being. It's treated as a fundamental truth about who you are.
That's a lot of pressure for a casual party conversation.
It really is.
And the script offers an alternative phrasing that hits even harder. It says you can also ask, what do you do for a living?
Right. And that phrase, for a living, is where the existential reality of work really comes into focus. It literally connects the act of earning money to the biological act of surviving, living.
Yeah.
It doesn't ask, what do you do for personal fulfillment? Or what do you do for fun? It asks, what specific tasks do you perform so that you can continue to physically exist on this planet?
It's basically a polite, sanitized way of asking a total stranger how they manage to feed and shelter themselves.
Exactly. And when we look at why this matters, it shows how deeply our society intrinsically links our present identity to our profession.
Mm-hmm.
In some cultures, the first question you ask a stranger might be about their family lineage or what region they're from. In our modern English-speaking world, your value and your place in the social hierarchy are immediately established by how you earn your survival.
So a casual party question is actually a profound inquiry into your survival mechanics.
When you really think about it, yes.
That's going to make my next networking event feel very different.
Okay.
But let's move from the existential to the physical. The source does a great job of mapping out the modern workplace and its players.
It does.
It gives these very clear archetypal examples of where work happens. It notes that doctors and nurses work in hospitals, teachers work in schools or universities, chefs work in kitchens or restaurants, and shop assistants work in stores. It's this very tangible geography of the economy.
It establishes the traditional boundaries of work. For most of human history, and certainly for the industrial age, work was a place you went to.
Right.
It was a physical destination separate from the home. The hospital, the school, the restaurant, these are specialized environments built explicitly for specific types of labor.
But then the script introduces a very modern addition to this foundational vocabulary, which shows just how much the world has changed. It introduces working from home.
Ah, yes.
And I love the specific detail the source includes here. It highlights the ultimate perk of this modern arrangement, working in your pajamas.
Which is a fantastic detail because it highlights the blurring of those traditional boundaries we just talked about.
Yeah.
When the home becomes the workplace, the strict separation between professional identity and personal comfort dissolves. You're engaging in the serious act of earning a living, but you're draped in the clothes of sleep and relaxation.
It's hilarious that an ESL text specifically highlights pajamas as a core work concept now. It represents a massive cultural shift in how we view professionalism.
Absolutely.
A few years ago, putting on a suit was half the job. Now it's just making sure your webcam doesn't pan down.
Yeah, the visual boundary is literally just the frame of the video call.
But whether you're in a hospital or in your pajamas at your kitchen table, you're rarely entirely alone in the economic machine. The script maps out the people and the dynamics we navigate. First, it defines colleagues.
Right.
It describes them as your teammates, the people you work with, and specifically notes them as the people you have coffee with.
That addition of having coffee together is crucial. It acknowledges that colleagues aren't just functional cogs in the machine next to you. There's an enforced social component to the workplace. You're expected to build micro-communities.
Right. It's not just about doing the spreadsheets. It's about the mandatory birthday cake in the break room.
Exactly.
And hovering above that micro-community is the next vocabulary word. The boss. The script defines the boss quite simply as the person in charge, the leader. But then it introduces the alternative, being self-employed.
Which it defines as being your own boss.
Right. And the script frames this perfectly. It says that being self-employed offers a lot of freedom. You don't have a boss telling you what to do, but it requires a massive amount of responsibility because you have to do everything yourself.
That's an incredibly accurate and mature framing for a beginner's lesson. It doesn't romanticize self-employment.
Not at all.
The concept of freedom in the workplace is highly sought after. But, as the script rightly points out, that freedom comes at the cost of ultimate burden. When you're the employee, you might have to answer to a boss, but you're also shielded by the structure of the company.
So if the printer breaks or a client doesn't pay or the internet goes down, someone else eventually has to solve that macro problem.
Precisely. When you're self-employed, every failure, every logistical nightmare, and every financial shortfall is entirely on your shoulders. It's the ultimate trade-off between autonomy and security.
The ultimate trade-off indeed. Everyone wants to be the boss until it's time to do the taxes. So we know who we are, where we are, and who's in charge. Now the source takes us into the daily grind itself, the micro level of work. It defines the things we do every day as our tasks.
Right.
And it lists specific, highly recognizable daily tasks, checking emails, writing reports, calling customers, and organizing files.
It's interesting that the examples chosen for the script are largely centered around modern knowledge work and administrative maintenance. Checking, writing, calling, organizing.
Right.
These are the basic units of value in our modern information age. It's not about lifting or building, it's about processing.
It's so beautifully mundane, but the script immediately pairs these tasks with a major challenge, the struggle for focus.
Which is harder than ever.
It defines focus as giving all your attention to one thing. And it makes a very pointed observation that it's often easier to focus at home because the office can be too noisy.
That's a brilliant critique of the modern open-plan office tucked right into a language lesson. We built these massive collaborative physical spaces to bring colleagues together, but the result is an environment so full of friction and noise that actual deep focus becomes nearly impossible.
Anyone who's tried to write a complicated report while their deskmate loudly crunches on almonds or talks on speakerphone knows exactly what this means.
Exactly. The fact that a beginner's guide to English specifically warns that offices are too noisy to focus in speaks volumes about the failure of modern corporate design.
Oh, absolutely. And speaking of things that destroy focus, the script brings up a highly relatable, practically universal pain point: meetings.
The dreaded meeting.
I love how the text defines a meeting. We all know the dread of a calendar invite, but the script strips it down to its bones. Sitting with your boss and colleagues to talk about a project.
And then it immediately points out why people universally hate them.
Because they're too long.
It's the universal groan of the global workforce, isn't it? It points to a fascinating inefficiency in how we work. A meeting is ostensibly a tool for alignment, but it so often devolves into performative work.
Right, you're just sitting there.
You're sitting in a room, demonstrating to the boss and your colleagues that you're involved in a project, but the sheer length of these gatherings actively prevents you from executing the tasks required to actually finish the project.
It makes you wonder, and this is something for you listening to really reflect on right now. If you look at your own daily tasks, do you spend more time doing actual focused work, or do you spend more time just sitting in long meetings talking about doing the work?
It's a trap we almost all fall into.
But beyond the tasks and the meetings, work is a deeply emotional experience, and the source dives right into the emotional spectrum of our jobs.
What's fascinating here is how the script moves beyond the binary simplicity of just calling a job good or bad. It introduces nuance through 4 specific adjectives that describe how jobs make us feel. And each one carries a very distinct psychological weight.
Let's look at those 4 adjectives, because they really map out the human experience of the daily grind. First is challenging.
Okay.
The script defines this as hard, but in a good way that makes you grow. Then there's rewarding, which it describes as making you feel happy and proud. The example it gives is a doctor saving a patient or a nurse helping people.
Both very positive angles.
Yeah, but then we get to the darker side: stressful. This is defined as feeling worried or tired due to too much work or a lack of time. And finally, repetitive, doing the same thing over and over like factory work.
The distinction between challenging and stressful is vital here. Challenging implies a level of difficulty that matches your competence, leading to growth and a sense of mastery. It's the friction required to sharpen a blade.
You want to be challenged. That's the dream, right?
Right. But stressful, on the other hand, is defined by the script through the lens of deficit, too much work, or not enough time. That isn't friction that sharpens. It's friction that just wears the blade down to nothing. It's feeling worried and tired because the system is asking more of you than you can reasonably give.
And then there's repetitive. The script makes a really great point here that I want to highlight because it feels a bit counterintuitive. It acknowledges that while some people find doing the same thing over and over, like factory work, to be boring, others actually prefer it.
This is perhaps the most profound observation in the entire text. We've been conditioned by modern corporate culture to view repetitive labor as inherently negative something, to be automated away or escaped from at all costs.
We're told we should all want jobs that are challenging.
Exactly. But the script rightly points out that repetitive jobs are often preferred by some because they're inherently low stress.
Wait, really? Are people genuinely opting for repetitive work over challenging work? That goes against almost every LinkedIn post I've ever read.
They absolutely are. Think about the mental bandwidth required for modern knowledge work. When your physical tasks are purely repetitive, your mental load is incredibly low.
You don't have to take the work home with you in your mind.
You clock in, your body performs the routine, your mind is completely free to wander, and when you clock out, the work is completely done.
That's a huge benefit.
In a world burning out from the constant, ambiguous demands of challenging knowledge work, the appeal of clear, finite, repetitive labor is actually quite deep.
That makes so much sense when you frame it like that. It's like the desire to just wash the dishes or mow the lawn after a 12-hour day of managing spreadsheets and putting out fires. The mental freedom of just doing the task and leaving it at the door.
Exactly.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. The source takes all these emotions, tasks, and locations, and it introduces the cold, hard logistics of the game. It explicitly discusses the trade-off between the money we make and the peace of mind we sacrifice.
A core equation.
The script defines the money received every month as salary and notes that everyone wants a high salary. But it explicitly points out that a high salary often brings a lot of stress.
It's the ultimate transactional reality of the workforce. The market rarely pays a premium for your comfort. A high salary is very often essentially hazard pay for enduring high levels of stress, carrying massive responsibilities, or sacrificing your personal time.
Wow.
The script is teaching the learner not just the word salary, but the unwritten economic rule that usually accompanies it. You want the big check. You take the big headaches.
And speaking of sacrificing personal time, the script tackles the daily journey to work. The commute.
Oh, the commute.
It offers a stark contrast using extreme examples. On one hand, you have the person spending an hour stuck in traffic. On the other hand, you have the remote worker with a 1-minute commute from their bed to their desk.
A huge gap in experience there.
And I have to mention, the source offers a very charming, practical suggestion here. If you have a long commute, it's the perfect time to learn, perhaps by listening to an educational podcast.
I love that little meta reference. But look at how it frames the commute. It's basically an airlock. It's that buffer zone where you decompress from being the corporate employee and transition back into just being you at home.
Right.
For the person stuck in traffic for an hour, that commute represents a massive loss of uncompensated time. But transforming that dead time into an educational opportunity is a powerful way of reclaiming your own agency over those lost hours.
But what about the bed-to-desk commute? That eliminates the lost time entirely.
It does, but it also eliminates that decompression chamber, which can make it very hard to mentally separate work mode from rest mode.
Because there's no boundary.
When your office is 3 feet from your bed, you never really leave work.
So true. You just roll out of bed still in those pajamas we talked about and right into the inbox.
Yeah.
Finally, before the script concludes, it offers some specific grammar mechanics for English learners talking about work. And these rules are surprisingly rigid.
They are.
First, it says you must always use a or n before your job title. You have to say, I am a teacher, or he's an engineer. You cannot just say, I am teacher.
Right.
Second, you use at for the location, like I work at the city hospital. And third, you use for the employer, as in I work for Google.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, these small grammatical rules, articles, and prepositions are doing some incredibly heavy lifting. They're the structural glue we use to attach ourselves to our professional identities in corporate institutions.
How so?
When the rule mandates that you say, I am a teacher, instead of I am teacher, the article a categorizes you. It signifies that you're one member of a larger recognized class of professionals. You're part of a system.
So I can't just be the abstract concept of teaching. I'm forced to be a specific unit within the larger category of all teachers.
Exactly. You're put in your grammatical box. And the prepositions at and for establish your relationship to power and capital.
Right.
Saying, I work at the hospital, physically locates your labor. Saying, I work for Google implies subordination and exchange. You're dedicating your energy for the benefit of that specific entity in exchange for your salary. The grammar itself forces the speaker to properly position themselves within the hierarchy of the economic system.
That's oddly profound. It's amazing how much societal structure is hidden in basic grammar when you actually take a second to look at it.
It really is.
So what does this all mean? We started with a script designed to teach English beginners how to talk about jobs, but what we've really uncovered is the blueprint of modern professional life.
Yeah, the whole architecture.
Whether we're examining work through the lens of a beginner English learner or a seasoned veteran professional, the foundational pillars remain exactly the same. We all have to navigate the commute, whether it's an hour in traffic or a minute across the bedroom.
We all manage the salary versus stress trade-off.
We execute the daily tasks, we manage the colleagues and the boss, and we're constantly evaluating whether the entire experience is rewarding, challenging, repetitive, or just plain stressful.
And it serves as a powerful reminder that our relationship with work is something we actively construct through language. The words we use to describe what we do actually shape how we feel about it.
Absolutely.
The source suggests practicing communication, even just 5 minutes a day. And that's incredibly valuable advice, not just for someone learning English, but for absolutely anyone. Taking 5 minutes to articulate clearly and simply what your tasks are, how your commute affects you, and whether your job is truly rewarding or merely stressful can provide immense clarity about your place in the working world.
Communicating it clearly strips away the illusions. It forces you to look at the reality of your daily grind without the corporate buzzwords getting in the way.
Exactly.
Which leads us to our final thought. We want to leave you, listening right now, with a provocative question to ponder on your own. It's a mental exercise building on everything we've unpacked from this source material.
I love this.
If you were stripped of your specific job title, if you couldn't use your company name, and if you were banned from using the standard adjectives we discussed today, noticing it's challenging, rewarding, stressful, or repetitive, How would you explain the true value of what you do for a living to a complete stranger? Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.